All right, so the questions that I get asked a lot, once people have already nailed down campaigns, once you already kind of understand targeting, once you understand ad copy and your landing page, or your funnels, et cetera, once you got all that down, then people's biggest problem usually is scaling. Just to go back to what I presented earlier, the multivariate testing, that is one really huge way that allows you to scale because, if you can double or triple your conversion rate, you can spend a lot more per click and still be profitable, right? And when you do start buying in large volume on Facebook, six-figure spends monthly, you are going to pay more per click than if you're spending, $10 a day or something. So let's go over scaling on Facebook here. So there's what I'd call 4 different strategies that you can use. The first one, which is the most common one you hear people talk about, is like incremental bumps in your budget. If you start out at $50 a day on an ad set, after a few days you bump it to like $55. Then a couple days, as long as it's going okay, a couple days more, then you bump it to like 60. Then you bump it to like 70, then 80, and so on. Every few days. And the problem with this though is that it takes so long to get to even $1,000 budget. It's like, who cares if you're doing 200% ROI on $50 a day? You're not making any money really, right? You want to get up to those, $500 a day, $1,000 a day, $5,000 a day spends, because that's when, at a good ROI, that's when you really start pulling in some serious money. The second way to scale up would be, which a lot of people do, is to duplicate your ad sets, which is what I call scaling out width-wise. I don't really like this method. It does work for a lot of people, but it's not really my favorite. Another way, obviously, is to just throw up new ad sets, with new targeting, new behaviors, new interests, etc. That's also obviously a way to scale up. My favorite way is to start with high budgets. If you start with high budgets, then Facebook's already optimizing. Let's say you start at $500 or $1,000 a day per ad set. Facebook's optimizing for that $1,000 a day. If your conversion value is $10 and you're starting out at $1,000 a day, they're like, okay, we need to find this guy 100 conversions a day. This is what I found is the quickest way to scale. Now it's definitely not the most conservative way. If it's something new that you're running, you are going to lose a little bit more money, of course, doing it this way. But it's a lot quicker, and I personally value time over money by quite a bit. So I don't mind spending more money to get the data, in just a matter of days, rather than taking a month or two to try to get to $1,000 a day, by just incrementally bumping. But once you start with high budgets, then from there you do want to do incremental bumps. So let's say you do start at $1,000 a day, then you can go up to $1,500. You can do basically larger bumps though. $1,500 the next day, and then a couple days later you can bump it to $2,000 and so on. This is one of the strategies as well to scale up. You don't want to necessarily start your campaign this way. This is more kind of once you've already started and you kind of see what's working targeting-wise. Then what you want to do is break out your ad sets by placement. A lot of people like to break it out by age, but unless there's huge differences in how the ages perform, typically you'd want to. It's better to break it up by placement, where you have whatever your targeting is, then you have it desktop newsfeed only. Then same thing, but iPhone only. Same thing, iPad only. Again, Android smartphones only, Android tablets only. Right-hand side only. Then you can mess around also with the Wi-Fi on or off. So you could literally even double up your ad sets just by turning Wi-Fi on one and Wi-Fi off on the other ones. If it's a smaller audience or something, or a lower demographic, if you will, that you're going after, then the all mobile newsfeed a lot of times works very well. You don't want to break, you don't want to break it into these placements if your audience size is small. Because let's say your audience size is only, let's say 1 million, 500,000 or something. Desktop newsfeed, it might take you down to like 100,000. And then iPhone only might, take it down to like 70,000 or something. So, you have to start out. That's why I like larger audience sizes, because then once you do break it down into these, you still have decent audience sizes. You're still going to have 900,000 or 1.5 million or 2 million size audiences doing it this way. The reason I also like doing it this way is because then you can individually break down your ad sets and the reporting by age or gender or region, etc. You can't do a age and gender and placement breakdown, right? So this is a great way to do it. And important thing to note actually with Audience Network, I don't know if any of you guys have ever tried running on Audience Network. Typically it's been very, very bad. But they actually just recently, in the last week or so, made it so you can actually finally block placements, just like you can on native ads or display. You can block sites that you don't want to show up. So Audience Network is something I'm going to start actually now that they have that. It's something I actually am going to start messing around with, and I encourage you guys to as well. And then obviously there's Instagram as well. I haven't had much luck with that, but not my demographics for most of my stuff is not millennials. So let's see. All right. So does anybody have any questions on this so far? No. All right.
If you start with a larger budget on your, let's say website conversions campaign, and you start it with $500 or $1,000, then what would you put your page post to gay budget and retargeting campaigns at budget-wise?
Whatever the overall budget is, when you total all your ad sets together, let's say it's $5,000. I put my page post engagement for the first week at about $500 a day. So about 10% of your overall budget should be, in my opinion at least, for the first week, should be dedicated to that page post engagement. Anything else? No? All right. Okay, so here's the next thing I like to do. As many of you have noticed, see if you've ever run like AdWords or something like that, you'll notice that the way it performs is pretty consistent day to day. You know, a certain keyword is, an ad is going to perform pretty consistently every day. Not exactly the same, obviously, but fairly close. That is not the case with Facebook. With Facebook, one day one of your ad sets might do really, really great, and the next day it might do really, really bad. So the way that I found that it really is, in my opinion, almost the only way that you can actually spend $20,000 to $50,000 a day on any given ad account is to do it like this. So let's say that you have one campaign. It's a website conversions objective, let's say. And then let's say that you have 10 different targetings, whether that's broad interest, precise interest, lookalikes, whatever, right? You have 10 different targetings. And then you break it down into 7 placements. So you do, desktop newsfeed, iPhone, Android, tablet, etc. You have 7. That would be 70 ad sets within your campaign, okay? Which would, and let's say that your budget total daily is $7,000 a day. That's what you want to spend. Let's say that's your goal. What I would do is set each budget to $300 a day, for example, in this example, and not $100 a day, which is what you would normally do to hit your 7,000, right? 70 ad sets, $100 a day, $7,000 a day, right? So, but since you know that not all your ad sets are going to perform, you need to set your budgets higher, knowing basically that some of them are not going to do well, and you're going to pause them. So you set each budget to about $300 a day. If they all do great, you spend $21,000 for the day, right? That's hopeful, right? That'd be great. You hope that all your ad sets perform, and if there's not a cap or whatever, and you can spend $21,000 a day profitably, like rock on, great, right? But that's not usually the case. So what you need to do is incremental pausing throughout the day. Okay? So with 70 ad sets, when I get these specific times here, this is going to be a little bit different based on your time zone or based on what times of day your offer usually performs. Like if it's a dating offer, obviously at night, you're going to be running it, a lot of times in the evenings or nights or early mornings. If it's so don't take these times of day here with a grain of salt. But so let's say you have those 70 ad sets. Okay, each set to $300 a day. What you want to do is around 7 or 8 a.m. You want to pause like the worst. 25 to 30% of them, which is going to be about 20 or 25 ad sets, something like that, that are just doing really, really bad, very unprofitable, etc. And the reason that you need to have your budgets higher also is so that you need to have enough data by 7 or 8 a.m. to make a decision on that ad set. If you only have $100 a day for the ad set, and by 7 or 8 a.m. it's only spent $30, and whatever you're promoting is a $30 CPA, let's say, that's not enough data to say, okay, this is a bad ad set for the day. $100 is what it should have spent by then, roughly. That's enough data on a $30 CPA to make a decision on that ad set and say, okay, I've spent $100 today, I only got one conversion, dump it. So you pause the worst 25 or 30% in the morning. It could be maybe what works best for you is depending on your time zone is maybe it's 5 a.m. Maybe it's 9 a.m. But it's early in the morning, so to speak. So typically you're going to lose money in the morning, okay? Because a lot of those ad sets obviously are not going to be profitable. So you're going to typically start out the day at a negative, okay? So you make those changes, you pause those 25 or so ad sets. Then you wait 3 or 4 hours, okay, to get that next $100 of data on those ad sets, okay? So let's say you do your first round at 8 a.m. 4 hours later, it's noon. You pause the next worst 25 to 30% of your ad sets. As you pause another 20 or 25 ad sets, that are either break even or unprofitable. So you do that, and then you do basically one more round for the day, around maybe 3 or 4 p.m., assuming that you're going to run in 24/7. You do basically 3 rounds a day, and you pause by 3 or 4 p.m. You're going to pause anything that's not profitable, or if stuff is like very very minimally profitable, and that peak traffic time of say 5 p.m. to around 9 p.m. is usually when traffic spikes, as you guys have all probably seen the graphs. If you're only marginally profitable at 4 p.m., you're probably going to lose money over the next 4 hours. So you basically want to pause those. So anything that's not doing really well, just pause it. You're going to be left with about, anywhere from, again, depending on how well you do it, anywhere from maybe 5 to 20 ad sets you might have left for the day. And you're going to just let those ride out and spend, and if they're profitable, you should stay profitable the whole rest of the day. Basically, you just, at the end of the day, you unpause everything you paused, and you do it again the next day. Very simple. After 3 days, 5 days, a week, something like that, depending on how much you're spending, whatever the ad sets are that consistently, day after day, did not perform well, pause it and don't bother wasting money on that anymore. Try some new targetings based around the ones that are working. If you find that like iPhone with a certain targeting is working, try a new targeting but with iPhone, for example. So start filling up and replacing these ad sets so you're not only left with 20 or so. You need to have a bunch of ad sets, basically throwing a bunch of darts at the wall to see what works for the day, okay? So typically, this is what's going to get you, so by 7 or 8 a.m., you're going to lose a little bit of money. Usually by noon, you'll be break even. And then by 3 or 4 p.m., you're profitable. And then by by midnight, you're very profitable because only the profitable stuff is still running. After you've done this for a couple of days and you see which ones seem to be working, which ad sets seem to be working, you bump those budgets up to maybe $400, maybe then $500. So you slowly bump those up, and if you want, the ones that aren't doing very well, you can slowly lower those budgets. Do it to like $200 or something a day instead of $300. And by doing this, you'll still spend that $7,000 a day that you're looking to spend, but you can do it profitably because some of those ad sets will be profitable for the day, just not all of them. And that's how it works every single day. Any questions on this? This is a really important concept, and this is something that I've never heard anyone else talk about. This is something that's worked for me across tons of verticals at high spend, which is the hardest part. I found without doing this that it's actually very difficult to be profitable at very large spends.
How does it tie in if you're starting a new campaign? Have you already tested the sales page or the offer page just so you know that it's going to convert?
Yeah, like I wouldn't, for example, like I said, I wouldn't start out the campaigns like all broken down, into desktop only and Android only, etc. I'd start out with desktop only, and then maybe mobile all combined, both into one ad set, to get a feel for what works, a feel for what targetings work, a feel for what age ranges work, a feel for how your sales page, your funnel's converting. Do some optimizations. Then once you're ready to scale, then you implement this.
Do you use, or which would you prefer, AdStage or Quia to, can't they automate that process? You can set up rules and stuff?
Yep, about to get into that, yeah. Anybody else? No? No? All right. So obviously, when you have this many ad sets, and especially if you're running multiple ad accounts or multiple campaigns or whatever, you're going to have, in some cases, hundreds of ad sets. And yes, this is a huge hassle to manage, right? So you need to start automating it. How do you do that with Facebook? Well, there are a few tools you can use. Quia doesn't have the best rules, so I wouldn't recommend that, but I like AdStage for rules, and it's adstage.io. They have and rules you can set up, for example. Let's say that your target CPA is $25, okay? You can set up rules like, run rule at 7 a.m. If ad set spend is greater than $100 and the CPA is greater than 30, then pause the ad set. And then this does your job, what I just mentioned in the scaling strategy. This does your job for you. You don't have to wake up at 7 a.m. You can let this do it for you. Then you can set something like, if the ad set spend is greater than 250 and the CPA is, greater than 30 but less than 40, so somewhere between 30 and 40 bucks, then reduce the budget by 20% because it's close to profitable but not quite. So you just want to maybe reduce the budget to let it slow the spend down and pick up maybe some cheaper clicks that might put you into profitability. You can also do stuff like, if the spend is greater than $100 and the CPA is below 25, meaning, we're good, that's where we want to be, we're profitable, increase the budget 10%. So you can set up a lot of rules like this that automate a lot of what you need to do to scale. And it's absolutely crucial. Otherwise, you're going to spend all your time sitting there just like refreshing and pausing campaigns, and it becomes a huge hassle. So to automate things is absolutely crucial. And again, it's adstage.io, and I think it's only like $100 a month or a couple $100 a month, but it's pretty cheap. It's a monthly fee, and it's not based on percentage of spend, which is the great part. There's a lot of tools that have great rules, but a lot of them work on 5% of your spend or something. And when you're spending hundreds of thousands a month, you don't want to pay 50 grand a month for a fucking Facebook tool. It's ridiculous. And they're actually literally as of just less than a week ago, Facebook is putting rules into Power Editor. They're not quite as advanced as this, where you can pick like a time of day yet, but they're very close. So I'd say within the next like 2, maybe month or so, they probably will be good enough where you won't even need AdStage. You'll literally be able to just use Power Editor, which is really cool. Any questions on this? You can set up rules for anything. Let's say that you that you have a cap on a certain offer. Maybe you can only do 100 sales a day or something, before you need to shut it off. And every day it's really annoying. You got to keep refreshing on your, affiliate page or your lead distribution software until you hit 100, and then you pause your campaigns because you can't sell any more leads for the day, let's say. You can set a rule where if your conversions are greater than 100 or, greater than 90 or something, it automatically pause for you. Your number of conversions. So you can automate a lot of your job with rules. So if you haven't used any rules before, I highly recommend it. If you haven't used them before, though, don't set them up right off the bat just on assumptions. What you want to do is do it manually for the first few days to get a feel for what time of day you should do it at and what the numbers really are. For whatever you're specifically promoting. So basically, just look. Okay, if every day around 7 a.m. I'm pausing. Anything that's spent. At least this amount, and the CPA is higher than this, whatever you're doing manually, just kind of like write that down and then make it a rule after a few days if that's something that you find that continuously works. All right, any questions? Nope. All right, so that's so I'm going to give a few gold nuggets here away that I usually don't tell anybody, but here we go. One thing you can do that's really cool is if a lot of you guys probably have friends that are emailers, or maybe you used to be an emailer yourself. Get quality emails from your emailer buddies and make lookalike audiences with them. You're not competing with these people. You're not competing with your email friends, right? Because you're hitting them on Facebook. And if your friends are, cautious because they don't want to give you their list, have them log in on TeamViewer or something and just paste it in themselves. And you can't get the email list back out of Facebook, so they shouldn't have a problem with that. So I'm sure at least all of you have at least one mailer friend that just has tons of data laying around. Take advantage of that and make some lookalikes on it. Make some money. Next one's cool is if your buddies, anybody you do know has, or you have yourself a bunch of emails laying around, and you don't really know if they're quality or not. One thing you can do is you can throw them into towerdata.com, and what that does is it matches your emails with third-party targeting, like income, purchase behavior, etc. A lot of the same stuff you target in Facebook. So you can, if somebody has a list of purchasers for, diet or, whatever it is, again, you can just throw it in. But if you don't know if they're good, if it's just partial data maybe or something, then, throw them into Tower Data and break it down by income, purchase behavior, education level, what car they drive, whatever you want, right? And you can basically then again, get a really quality email list for next to nothing, you know, almost free. Last one, PPV traffic for retargeting. You guys all know what PPV is, I hope. Pop-ups? Yeah, pop-unders? Nope. Okay, so there's networks out there like Direct CPV, Traffic Vance, 50 on Red, and you can buy pop-up traffic, okay? And the way that most of these work is that you can choose search terms, for example, like anything that somebody would search on Google. So let's say you're promoting, I don't know, a mortgage offer or something. You might want to, you know, let's say you normally want to buy the keyword, find, mortgage rates. Something like that, right? And, you know, normally on Google, you're going to pay, you know, a few dollars, maybe $10, you know, depending whatever it is, you know, per click, right? It's a lot of money. Why not just buy a pop-up of somebody that just searched that word on Google and throw your Facebook pixel on there, you know? I found that about 1 out of every, depending on where you buy the traffic from, 1 out of every 4 or 5 people is logged into Facebook in their browser, which means that that pixel actually will match them and then add them to your custom audience. So you can basically get really, really, really targeted traffic for, you know, between 3 and 5 cents a person. And people don't, and the good news is too, is that you can make money on the pop-ups as well, you know, like, have a little image that clicks through to your lander or whatever. And if you make money on the pop-ups, great, you know, and they're a penny each typically. But if you don't, not the end of the world. But people don't like pop-ups, right? People don't trust pop-ups. I found by actually showing them the ad, finding that user that has the intent to purchase something, but then showing them the ad on Facebook, you get a much higher conversion rate, and they trust Facebook a lot more than they trust some random pop-up. So I found this works really well. With pop-ups also, you can target your competitors' URLs. If you're promoting, again, so like mortgage or something, you could have pop-ups come on when people go to Lending Tree or any big mortgage refinance site, so to speak. This works for any niche, any vertical. Pop-ups are super annoying, but again, you can get people for super, super cheap, and it works really well. That's it. Any questions? Any questions?
So they have to, I don't know how it works. They'd have to click on the pop-up, land on the lander, and that would fire the pixel? Or just the
Nope.
pop-up popping up?
You can just literally have your pixel in the pop-up.
Nice.
Yeah, nice and simple. They don't even have to click through. As long as that pop-up loads fully and they're logged into Facebook in the browser, good to go. They're in your audience. Now, I will say that something that you do want to do, because some of these, depending on where you're buying these pop-ups, some of them, could get your domain reputation lower. It could make your MyWatt score bad, or it could put you on like Norton antivirus lists and stuff like that, which you don't want to happen, obviously. So if you do this, what I recommend is you set up another domain that's not your main domain, and have the pop-up traffic go there, and then ideally make another ad account. Throw that ad account pixel onto that lander. On that extra domain you just bought, and then share that audience and that pixel with your main one, so that you don't risk your domain. If that third-party domain gets hit with something for some reason, Facebook doesn't like it, whatever, who cares? It's not going to hurt you. It's not going to hurt your main domain, at least. You don't want to be popping your main domain that's branded and you spend a lot of money on, and then just have it get blocked for some stupid reason like a pop-up. So. Make sure you use a third party, like a third party domain or whatever, so you're not using your main one. Anybody else? Questions? Question back there.
When you're running an ad set, how do you know it's statistically valid? How do you know when an ad set, when you're running enough that you know it's statistically valid? You said if it's a $30 cost per acquisition, if you do $100, like sometimes I run an ad and it's not effective, but I think maybe it's because it's Monday, and if I run it for 3 days,
exactly, yeah, you don't
on Wednesdays.
Yeah, you don't want to get rid of an ad set, no matter, even if you get you spend $100, let's say, on an ad set, you get 0 conversions. You don't want to pause it yet. It's only been 1 day, right? Maybe people were out of town. Maybe the weather was really good and they weren't on their computers. Maybe there was some special new premiere on TV that had their interest or something. So you want to wait a number of days with 0 conversions before you get rid of it. You could plug in like a statistical relevance, equation, obviously, but you'd have to spend thousands of dollars for it to actually be statistically relevant. So typically what I do is, after, let's say 3 days, and I've spent 300, or like basically 10x the CPA value, if I haven't got any conversions by then, or only 1 or something, gone. That's a mistake I see people make all too often, is pausing things too early. If they have a $10 CPA and it spends $10, they get no conversions, they pause it. That next click could have been a conversion, just don't pause things too early, because otherwise you're just going to shoot yourself in the foot and lose a lot of potential clients. Any other questions? Got one over there.
Okay, so let's say you upload a list of emails and you create the lookalike audience, and then next month your friend's list got bigger and you want to upload new emails. Do you replace that file? How do you go about updating the lookalike?
What you can do, actually, Facebook didn't used to have this functionality, but they do now. You can actually edit that original source audience that you uploaded and just add the new emails in, and then it will automatically, if you make the lookalikes based on that source audience, the lookalikes will automatically update for you.
Okay, so you just re-upload, add it to the file.
Yeah, you edit that custom audience, you click edit, and then there's an option to add new emails.
Okay.
Yeah, so you just do that.
Awesome.
Anything else? Nope. Cool. All right, good to go.